Hello and welcome to the preview video for SWIFT's 2018 African Regional Conference. I'm joined today by Sido Bestani, who's SWIFT's Regional Director for Africa, the Middle East and Turkey. Sido, welcome.
Thank you, James.
Now this is the 25th year for ARC. What can we expect from this year's event?
Indeed, James. This is going to be the 25th edition of the African Regional Conference, which is going to be held in Kigali, in Rwanda. We've taken, over the last few years, we've taken the conference from South Africa to Morocco, from Uganda to Ghana, so all the different places of Africa. This conference is really important for us and for the banking industry. It's a unique platform where people are going to be talking about the trends and challenges of Africa. It will gather 500 bankers from all over Africa, and it's going to be a good opportunity to listen to those bankers, understand the issues they are facing, and somehow see how SWIFT can support their business and see if we can address some of the challenges they are facing. The agenda will be focusing around innovation and technology. This is going to change, the landscape of, it is changing actually the landscape of Africa. We will be looking also at the next generation of payment, whether it is mobile payment, whether it is instant payment, or, the traditional correspondent banking. Looking also at the financial crime compliance. This is an important topic which has been there for a few years now. And not to forget, obviously, the cybersecurity. This is a major threat. It is going to be there for some time. It's becoming more and more sophisticated, and we want to make sure that the banks are rightly protected.
So Sido, you mentioned financial crime compliance as being one of the big challenges facing financial institutions in Africa, and obviously this is very important in terms of the de-risking discussion. How does the de-risking landscape look to you in Africa today, and what role is SWIFT playing in addressing that challenge?
Yeah, indeed. De-risking is driven by anti-money laundering. It is driven by counter-terrorism financing, and obviously also by regulatory pressure. This is a worldwide problem, but it has a major impact for the African banks. Why? Because we've seen, for example, for the last 2 years, a drop of a correspondent banking relationship between the African banks and their correspondent bank in the Western countries. And this does have an impact on the business of the banks, but also on the economy of the country. Because if you cannot make a payment, then it's difficult for the country to grow and to develop itself. And we see two challenges there. We see the high cost in order to implement those tools, to be compliant. And at the same time, the other point that we see is the fact that there need to be more education, training within the bank to demonstrate that the bank has the skills for that. And we know, so if we come back to the high cost, the banks all over the world have invested billions of dollars, and similarly the banks in Africa needs to invest a lot of money in order to be compliant. In this, we are working closely with the community and collaborate there in order to provide tools which are affordable for them, which are easy also to implement. So we have now set up a number of utility service around sanction screening, around KYC registry. So a number of tools which are there to help the banks to comply with those local and international regulation. For the part of education and knowledge, we are working also very closely with the banking industry, with the regulators and so on, to raise the awareness to make sure that the banks can demonstrate that they have the skills and they are putting in place the right process to comply with those procedures. So we will be covering this topic in depth during the African Regional Conference, and we should have a very interesting discussion around that.
Okay, so it's a long-term challenge, but there are some solutions in place being helped along there by SWIFT. And finally, Sido, I wanted to ask you just about, you mentioned at the start, this year's event will take place in Kigali, Rwanda. Looking at East Africa, it's a very exciting region. There's developments taking place in the fintech space. There's exciting progress in terms of regional payments integration and so on. What are the key trends for you when you look at East Africa today? And also, what role does SWIFT play in terms of engaging with the local financial community?
Indeed, James. I mean, Eastern African country region is one of the driving force of Africa. If you look just at the statistics, we have in 2017 we have seen a growth of 17%. Versus a worldwide traffic growth of 9%, so well above the average growth. We have also 2 years ago invested in, we have opened an office in Kenya, in Nairobi, because we believe that we need to be closer to the local community, understand the needs, see how we can help them, develop their business, and see, also how we can help them, address the challenges that they have. One of the important projects we had the last few years with the sub-region, with the Eastern African region, is around their payment system. So Eastern African payment system, which has been implemented in 2013. Since it has been implemented, we have seen doubling of the traffic between those countries through this system, which is using SWIFT, which means that the trade within the countries of Eastern African countries is increasing, which means that there is more business which is done between those countries. Perhaps the next step is to think about, on the long term, is you have in Africa, different payment system, regionally localized. So we talk about Eastern African countries. We have the Cyrus one for the SADC countries. We have the WAMSI system. We have the two French systems, the one from BCAO and from BEAC. So all of them are regional system using SWIFT. Maybe there should be an idea of interconnecting, all these systems, which in turn will allow to do more business within Africa and develop the trade within Africa. So this is also one of the interesting discussion we shall have at ARCA.
Okay, so a very interesting story there, Sido, in terms of integrating those regional payment systems over the longer term. Thank you very much for your time today. I look forward to seeing you in Kigali.
Thank you, James.